Hey, discerned listeners, sister wives, let's check it out. Oh, they're in Sedona. I kept hearing them refer to Sedona, and I'm like, there's a Sedona in Nevada? But they're in Arizona. So, but they live in, is Sedona near, maybe Sedona is near Las Vegas, but why wouldn't they just get a therapist in Las Vegas? Would it, or is the therapist from Las Vegas, but they're all traveling to Sedona? I don't know. I don't understand.
What we're going to do is let you sculpt here, and you're sculpting with your own bodies. One, you're going to position yourselves where you think you are in relation to...
Okay, this is a family therapy technique. It was somewhat popularized by Virginia Satir, who is a very interesting family therapist, to say the least, if you've ever watched her work. There are tapes of her working in the 70s and 80s. And I use this as well. I've used this with clients. I've used it with students to demonstrate what you can do in therapy, and it can be very powerful work. Very, very powerful. There's different versions of it. What she's doing, it's called family sculpting, and what she's doing is she's having them each put themselves in relation to the other people that represents their position in the family. It can be very revealing, and there's a lot of jumping off points. You can have people switch spots and say, okay, you are now, Mary, you're now in the spot that Janelle put herself. What does that feel like to be in this position? And, it can be a little goofy, and sometimes you have to help people to get over the goofiness, and sometimes it goes nowhere, but it usually goes somewhere. There's other versions too. The one that I like to do is I will have one person be the sculptor. So like in this situation, I might take Cody, or I just go around the horn and say, okay, who wants to go first? And I would just grab someone and say, okay, I want you to sculpt all 5 of y'all in a way that represents the way that you see how the family is metaphorically. And you can do it however you want. You could have it based on proximity in terms of closeness or distance. You can also position people in a certain way. Like if someone's really aggressive, they would be like going like this. If someone's really scared, then I want you to sculpt someone so you'd ask someone to act really scared. And that can be very powerful. And then I want you to put yourself in the sculpture. It can be very emotional for everyone. And you can imagine that being very informative too. It's like, wait, so this is how you see me? I didn't know that.
To each other now. This is how close I feel to Cody. This is how far apart I feel, or whatever. And part 2 will be where you would like to make adjustments.
Okay, so she's doing a pretty simple version of it, which is good to start that way, just based on proximity and closeness. And then the second part is where you'd like to be. Okay.
When we say that Nancy's aggressive, I was like, crazy lady, you are pushing us right to the threshold. And I started looking for the back door, basically, emotional.
Okay, so the edit, we don't know if this is what he was talking about, but I could see Cody feeling that way, that he's really worried and I think has been unsuccessful to help the sister wives get along. And he's like terrified, like, wait, we're going to reveal, because I think he knows that there's going to be a split between Mary and Janelle and Christine, and that's going to be hard to see. But if that's how it is, then sometimes it's important to make that visual. That's another good thing about this. It's one thing to say, hey, there's a split. It's another thing to visualize it and see it. It goes into the memory and is much more impactful. I'll have people 25 years later tell me about a sculpture that they did with me, and they'll remember every detail, whereas I doubt they remember every single session where we talked about things.
I was like, how do I get out of this? It's so vulnerable. And I felt the vulnerability with each one of my wives.
I'll position. I'm positioned.
Yeah, so Cody, I think, is saying, I felt the tension and the fact that they would have to be vulnerable. Because they've all basically said, I think, that they all individually feel close to Cody, which is, I think, a pretty good sign given their goal as a family. But they're not necessarily close to each other. That's the other thing, is there's always goofiness, and I always expect that and work with it. Yeah, this is goofy. I'll even say that. I'll be like, this might feel really goofy, and if it's too goofy, and this is what I tell my students too, is that expect people to think it's goofy, because it is. It's fucking weird, you know. There's empty chair work. You know, whenever you step outside of what their expectations are, it can be very, very strange, and people can get worried and embarrassed. And what I tell my students to do is to expect it and maybe even predict it. So, you know, you might giggle, it might be a little funny at first. But what I tell my students is if you're going to do it, you got to kind of commit. Now, if something goes horribly wrong, you can pull the plug. But what I see students do sometimes is they'll dip into it. There will be goofiness for the first 3 minutes, and then the therapist will go like, well, let's do something else. And what that sets up is that you're not sure of yourself. You just put them in a goofy situation for nothing. It sets a precedent that you're never going to do that kind of thing again, or you're not being a strong leader. You know, a strong leader in a situation like this says, I know y'all are going to feel goofy. I've done this sort of thing before. It's going to feel a little strange, but I'm committed to doing this for the next 40 minutes or however long. And I usually find that people find it worth it once we get past the initial goofiness of it all. But I don't want you to do anything you don't feel like doing, and I don't want you to feel like I'm railroading you or pressuring you at any point. If you just want to sit out, go for it. But I think there might be some usefulness here. Or if you want to slow down, just raise your hand. That's fine too. I don't want you to feel like you're forced into anything. That's important to do in these situations. But anyway, so they're feeling goofy. And you could argue it's a defense, right? Because Mary doesn't, in terms of what we've seen, even in the therapy sessions, they, I think, have agreed that they're not going to talk about it because there's no point in talking about it. They don't trust that talking about it will help. I think they think to talk about it is to make it worse. So I think the goofiness could be considered a defense against that. Well, if I laugh, then maybe I can avoid this.
Okay, I'm in a position too.
When Nancy first told us the exercise, I thought, oh, no.
And then again, we see Robin and Mary bonding and laughing and putting arms around each other.
It's going to get really super honest, and I don't know if we want to do this.
How about this? Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe a little closer to you.
Then I'm here.
Okay, interesting. I mean, they're editing it, and Robin, let's rewind that. Robin grabs the hands of Cody and of Mary and says, how about this? And then Mary says, I like that. So that was some kind of response to something. Christine's already over. I think that's a symbol that Christine feels close to Cody, but not to Robin and Mary because Christine's on that side. It's also been interesting to me to think about where they sit when they're being interviewed and in therapy, which often does align with this. But I always thought it was by design, but that doesn't make any sense. It's always Mary and Robin on one side and Janelle and Christine on the other side. And then Janelle says, I'm over here. Okay? It's good to express themselves.
We're honest, and I don't know if we want to do this.
How about this? Is that better?
Yes.
So, yeah, there's massive things edited out. Christine's already over there, and Robin offers up, hey, if I did this, how does that? They're all kind of looking at Mary. So Mary must have said, I don't feel comfortable, or I don't think I'm actually that close to Cody or anyone or something. I don't know.
Yes.
And interesting that Robin offers that up intuitively, and Mary says, yes, that's definitely more comfortable for me. So Robin and Mary showing their bond or their alignment.
Maybe a little closer to you.
Then I'm here.
Why are you there?
Huh?
Are you being honest?
Yes. And then for me, it was kind of felt good to be honest.
Because I almost should be over here.
Why?
We were all kind of...
Okay. Janelle's like, it feels good to be honest. It felt like awkward. And now that the cat's out of the bag, it feels like good. Probably because no one was like, how dare you, Janelle? It's like, we're just we're just showing how it really is, and that feels good to have it out in the open. Christine says, I'm going to be back here, back to back with Cody. Hard to know what she's symbolizing with that. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So it's time for Halloween, trick-or-treating and candy and spooky movies. Maybe a time for us to reflect on our fears. And Halloween is supposed to be fun, but when we think about our fears, we can be afraid of all sorts of things, right? Like Freddy Krueger and that monster in the closet. But in my world, I talk with clients about fears that are more down to earth, like being afraid of failure or social anxiety or being terrified of abandonment. Of course, therapy is a wonderful place to explore these sorts of fears. A therapist can help us to face them, identify them, help us to dismantle them, to recover from them, to help us live without the constant or occasional feelings of being under threat. Well, one place you can find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Of two sides, Cody, then Christine was back here behind him. I almost want to say, hey, I don't know if this is safe for us right now.
That was edited, but Robin's saying, I don't know if this is safe for us. Safe? What's the danger? Because of the conflict between the sister wives? Is the conflict way bigger than I even think it is? Safety?
I don't know.
This is very awkward.
No, I don't want to talk about it. It was the worst part of the trip for me.
Again, they're editing it, but if we believe the edit, then Christine is saying that the sculpture is the worst part. It could have opened a can of worms for her that she doesn't. The way that the sister wives talk sometimes, and I've talked about this before, and they've talked about, that it's almost like there would be a natural tendency to have at least some of this, that in order for them to make it work emotionally, they kind of go into a little bit of denial that the other wives are involved with their husband. Not completely, but a little bit. And of course, there would be kind of a line there for any working relationship, right? That it's like you want to acknowledge, if you're Christine, you're like, I know that Janelle and Robin and Mary are married to Cody, and they have intimacy and conversations and sex or whatever. But I don't want to hear the details. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see a videotape of it, because that would really get under my skin. I know about it intellectually. It's sort of like if you know that your kid is, say your kid's like 22 or 20 and they're at college and they're drinking and having sex, you figure, because, they're on the pill, or you see condoms around their apartment or something. And you're like, okay, intellectually, there's a pretty good chance that my kid is doing that stuff, but I don't want to hear the details, because I'm okay with it intellectually, but to experience it or hear it or visualize it, it'll really hurt me or worry me or something. So I know it, and that's so. I think that the sister wives have that, but I think that they would go even further and almost like go into over denial about the other relationships, and so and I think maybe particularly for Christine, honestly, I think she felt. The way she reacted to Robin, it seemed like she felt that, she didn't say this directly, but it almost seemed, this is a few seasons ago, but it seemed like she was saying that she felt that Cody had a real special relationship with Christine, and maybe she did. And she could always bank on that, or she needed to believe that. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation here. And for her, when Robin came in, it was harder for her to uphold that fantasy. And then for her to visually see Robin right next to Cody, and Christine intellectually is like, well, I'm probably not as close to Cody as he is with Robin, but now I'm faced with it visually, and I can't handle that. That feels very bad to me. Because for Mary, it seems like she's okay with Robin being closer to Cody in that moment, at least, or she could be the peacemaker and the pleaser in this moment as well. But anyway, so I'm wondering if that's what's going on in her head.
The absolute worst.
What would be some adjustments that would make it even more comfortable?
Or it was, there's 1,000 other possibilities as to why Christine hated this. It could just be vulnerable. It could be 1,000 other things. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Well, for each one of you.
In the future or
In the
now?
future, in the future.
Okay.
Okay, good intervention. So asking them what they would like it to be like. And Janelle says, what I would like is not only side by side with Cody, but straight on. That's interesting. That's a huge vulnerable moment for Janelle. She could have been like, yeah, because my impression is outwardly and maybe to herself, she's like, I'm fine being the distant one. I'm fine being checked out. But for her to say, this is what I want, is I want intimacy. So I wonder if she's saying earlier when she's like, I've changed and that's why things are different now. It's because I no longer want to share my husband. I don't know, just speculating.
This is where I really want to be.
This is so up close.
Okay, so then Christine also wants to be very close. She had a hard time really placing herself. It looks like she wants to be closer, maybe to Robin too.
Oh, it is. But we're not there.
What does this mean to you guys?
I see it as the relationships are all important and equal. Unfortunately, we drag Cody into our sister-wife relationship sometimes.
One of the things that doesn't work is to put someone else into the center of a relationship. A healthy relationship means you are dealing directly with the other person.
Yeah, she's talking about triangulation, so that's good. I don't know how they got to this configuration. Maybe this was what the therapist directed them to do, or they landed on this as like, this is what we would like. Yeah, it feels claustrophobic, doesn't it? As they release, I want to be here, and you got this sense like, oh God, that's like claustrophobic for everybody.
Not asking someone else to fix.
So you wouldn't feel comfortable in the middle, like standing here in the middle?
If I'm in the middle, then I become your sole focus.
Right, and that's smart. That if he's in the middle, then he's triangulated into all their conflicts, So, yeah, it sounds like his whole mission with couple therapy is to help the sister wives get along better.
Your connection to each other has to go through me, and that cannot exist. Here's the thing. We're not truly a family unless upon my death, you stay a family.
That's not my favorite topic of conversation.
No, but listen, if I wasn't in the picture, would this picture stay?
I think this might be a dogma. I think this might be dogmatic within their religion, that is part of the definition, maybe not formally, but the idea of it, right? That we are in harmony and we are all meant to be together, and we will be in the afterlife together. We'll be married together in the after. You're not just sister wives here on earth. You're sister wives for eternity, I think is how it goes. And therefore, if I'm not in the picture, if I died, you're dedicated to each other. You wouldn't just marry other people or become far-flung, distant, people. We're five people together as a team, regardless of me being a part of it, honestly. And yeah, I could see that. There's different ways of doing this kind of thing, but I think that is the spirit behind the rule.
It's kind of like a as I need it kind of a relationship, and that's probably not the best way to have it, but it's almost like I interact probably more with Janelle just because our kids have always done things. With Mary, not as much.
Interesting. So Christine is always honest and humble and saying, well, I would really only interact with the other sister wives as needed, not because I wanted to. And maybe that should change. And she's saying what I speculated in an earlier video, that Mary wasn't bonded as much because Christine and Janelle shared similar trials and tribulations with kids and would have to coordinate more because all the kids, except for one of them, were the two of their kids in that original house. Because that's where all their roles really got solidified, was in that house together in Utah, in Lehi, I believe. So Christine is saying that. So, maybe this would really help. This could also just reveal something and then they do nothing to address it and it just gets worse.
I'm completely in a different place than anybody
But
else.
that doesn't separate you from the family if you choose to be part of the family. You can have relationships with each one of your sister wives independent of me. That's my point, is having a
And I
relationship.
do,
Is it a good relationship? Do you like
in
it?
some cases.
Interesting. So Christine kind of opened it up slightly, and then Cody is, in essence, pressuring Mary to put more effort, and Mary seems like she doesn't want to. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a tall order that you'd fall in love with a guy and you'd be best friends with his wives. Yeah, it's hard to find one person to be compatible with, and it's another thing to be compatible with all of them. They would claim that they would bond as a family before they would get married or even entertain that idea, but I don't think they spent that much time. And it was a long time ago.
I want all of us to put our arms around each other, and then I want all of us to put our foreheads together.
The circle of us goes like this, and it's tight and it's strong, and then sometimes it just breaks apart a little bit, and we just have to figure out where we are, but we know what we want.
So that everybody is connected. And if in this position, all of us have connection to each other.
That is very sweet. It was his idea to do that, and that is very sweet.
Fit in a box, do we?
I would honestly change the picture because I don't think it has to be all balanced. And I thought, wow, I really have an opinion here. I'm so surprised by this.
I think our faith in God.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that Janelle usually would just be quiet in the background and be checked out. And she was even surprised herself, like, wait, I have an opinion? I don't think it's opinion. I think it's involvement and trust and feeling together. So the activities and the interventions that were that they participated in, that the therapist facilitated, of which we only saw tiny snippets of, I think helped, and maybe that forehead together thing helped Janelle feel like a part of the family again, appreciated, and then that motivation to involve herself comes out. I don't know if she's depressed. I don't see any evidence directly of that, but if she were, I would wonder if the lack of involvement, feeling pushed out, and excluding herself would contribute to that inactivity.
Of someone who hasn't had the experience with the plural family, and the fact that she's a monogamous too, I'm a little hesitant.
I want everybody's feet in the picture because it's like representing a journey, and our steps are going to make this happen.
My favorite experience working with Nancy in Sedona was actually the fact that she gave us so much traction.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it, and take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.